Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to this month's episode of 30 Minutes Robotic Milking Edition. I'm your host, Marcia Andrews, Dairy Science Professor and Extension Specialist at the University of Minnesota in St. Paul. With us today is also your co-host, Jim Sulphur, Dairy Extension Educator at the St. Cloud Regional Office. Hi, Jim.
Hi, Marcia, and welcome everyone.
So hopefully you're able to join us today. Zoom is having a global outage, so some people might not have been able to be here. So I'm glad those of you who are able to join us are here. So thank you. Just a few housekeeping items. If you are watching this webinar as a recording on YouTube, and next time you want to join the live virtual discussion with the dairy producer, please register at z.umn.edu/30minrm. And today, in order to ask your questions, we're going to be using the Q&A box, not the chat box, please, just the Q&A box. You can find that on the bottom of your screen, and either Jim or I will read your question or comment on your behalf. We're very pleased today to have with us Alicia from New York, and she is going to tell us about the robotic dairy operation. It's fully automated rotary system, so it's kind of unique to the series of webinars. We have a different thing to show you today, so that's exciting. So Alicia, please join us, and thank you for being here today.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can, and we can see you. Thank you for being here. Start with the first picture here that is your overview of your operation, and I'll go away for a while and then come back for the discussion. So thank you.
All right, very good. Thanks for inviting me to be part of the discussion today. It's always fun to talk about your operation, of course, but also extremely fun. And the most fun part for me is having interaction with other producers and other agribusiness people that are out there. So I wanted to start by giving a quick overview of our family's farm. So we are located in Western New York, about halfway between Buffalo and Rochester. And my husband, Jonathan, and his brother, Matthew, are the 12th generation of lamb family to farm. So it's been in the family for a long time. They've been here in Oakfield since 1965, I believe. So just over, 50, 60 years now. They've been here in Oakfield operating as Lamb Farms Incorporated in Oakfield Corners Dairy. The family had very modest beginnings, started out with about 50 cows between Jonathan's dad and grandfather back in the mid-60s, and have grown to the scale that they are today. And that's been mostly through internal herd growth. They've always focused on keeping cows healthy, keeping them around, not selling any extra cows. And so that's led to the growth that we see today. Currently, we're milking at 4 locations, 3 in Western New York and 1 out in Western Ohio. All told, it's about right around 8,500 cows that we're milking between the 4 operations. The overview that you see here is of Lamb Farms number 2. It was their first satellite operation that they purchased back in 1998. The farm was in very rough condition when they purchased it and did a lot of upgrades over the years. But back in the, I would say mid-teens, if you want to call it back, about 5-6 years ago, we were milking in 2 side-by-side double 10 herringbone parlors and trying to get right around 1,300 cows pushed through there. And the facilities were about 60 years old. So we knew that we needed to do something to upgrade this operation. And it was either we were going to shut it down, or we were going to do an upgrade of some sort. And obviously in New York, there's a lot of regulations that we have to contend with, both from a labor situation as well as from an environmental situation. So robotics came into play as an option that we wanted to look at, potentially look at for labor saving at the time. So Jonathan and his brother Matthew investigated a lot of options and decided to go with the robotic rotary parlor. As you look at this overview, the front part closer to the road here is the original operation that had been expanded to the 1,300 cows that we were milking back in early 2021. In the right-hand side, back behind the feed bunks, that's the new build. And we began milking in our parlor. It was March 10th of 2021. So about a year and a half, we've been back in this new facility. At the time we started, we were milking in the barn that's on the left-hand side, over by the parlor there, Marcia. It was a new build back in 2020, and we moved the cows up very slowly through the parlor, milking about 100 for the first few days, and then in about 3 or 4 days later, introducing another 100. And to be honest, it was an exhausting several months to get the facility filled. And we're not quite at capacity yet. We're milking about 2,750 through the parlor right now. We have capacity for 2,800 total. So we're very, very close to being full, and which is something that I appreciate, because the lamb family is always known to overcrowd and overexpand, and our parlors are a limiting factor. So we are going to hit about 2,800 cows, and that's going to be it. So that, not that it makes me happy, but I think it's a good number to be at for where we are right now. If you want to switch slides here. Okay, so here's an overview of the parlor itself. It's a 72 stall GEA Pro-Q robotic rotary parlor. So if you guys have had any discussions and sessions about the GEA robot, this is the exact same robot that you see in a box stall. It's just mounted on the wheel. So that's the only difference here. And we do operate with 1.5 people in the parlor, and people are like, oh, a half a person. So we've got 1 full-time person in the parlor, and then a half kind of a floater person if our primary milker needs to take a restroom break. We also have direct loads out of here. So we've got a direct load milk system. So our primary milk operator, it takes 20 to 30 minutes to switch tanks. So we need somebody in the parlor just to monitor everything while he's taking those breaks. So that's why we call it 1.5. And that half a person is doing other things in the interim, whether sorting cows off the rail for breeding, for any shots that we may be giving, for repro shots, or hoof trimming, dry off, things of that nature. So he's not just sitting around for the other part of the time that he's there. So very much like a traditional robotic parlor. So the unit comes out. As soon as the cow steps in the parlor, the wheel is moving. The unit comes out, attaches to the cow. With the GEA system, all of the pre-dip and pre-work is done right inside of the liner there. So it's stripping. We do have a conductivity reader that's measuring and monitoring for mastitis. So we get that report instantaneously, as well as a report at the end of the day or in the morning for each shift, for each individual cow, and for each individual quarter. So that's kind of a cool and unique system there. And then the cow steps on the parlor usually within about 60 seconds. The milk is cleared, been tested, and it's clean milk going right into the tanks at that time. And then as she goes around the parlor, obviously it's doing the post dip right in the unit as well, and she exits the parlor. So one thing that we are doing is we're grouping our cows by milking speed. So we've got 3 speeds set on the wheel. So we've got an 8-minute turn, a 9-minute turn, and a 10-minute turn. Obviously the 10-minute turn is for our fresh cows, and then our slower milking cows. And then usually the later lactation cows and first calf heifers are on that quick 8-minute turn. They milk out a little more quickly than the others. If you want to, you can switch to the next slide. So this is just kind of the milker overview area. He's got in addition to keeping the crowd gate pushed up, you know, he's got an overview of everything that's going on right at the farm with that monitor there. How many cows are left in the holding area, where the cows are exiting on the exit area, as well as right in the milk house and on the milk trucks themselves. Additionally, a little bit further to the left, there's that little Q-View system, which is a cool system that we have with GEA. It's an interactive monitor. So Each individual cow, and you can switch to the next screen there. Each individual cow you can see is identified on the wheel as long as their RFIDs are working, which is an ongoing role for us to keep those up to date. But we can monitor not only her production and percentage of production where she's expected versus where she actually is, but there is a separate screen if you click on details, which we don't have on this picture, but you can see what lactation she is, days in milk. And if she does have any issues, say that the conductivity indicates that she needs to be checked for mastitis, we're able to sort her out right from this QView screen. So that's a really nice management tool for our milking operators and herdsmen to have right at their fingertips in the parlor itself. So here's an overview of our barn. So it's a hybrid ventilation barn. I should call it a modified hybrid ventilation barn. Anyone that knows of Gordy Jones, he really has pushed the hybrid ventilation model. For us, that model was built on a 4-row barn. We like using a 6-row barn. And so we quickly learned that the 6-row barn was a little bit too wide for the ventilation as he had it there. So we had to add some exhaust fans at the end of the barn to exhaust the barn more completely and keep the fresh air moving over the cows. But overall, we're very happy with this system. So we do, as far as our barn itself, so the reason we went with the rotary parlor is because we like to manage our cows the way we like to manage our cows. And we are milking right at 2,800 cows through this barn. We want to milk them at 3 times a day on a consistent schedule, so every 8 hours. And just having the robotic rotary itself helps us manage our cows a little easier than if we had a box rotary system. So we are bedding with recycled manure solids. Cows are very comfortable, very happy with that system. We're feeding a traditional TMR right in the barns. We don't have to worry about having a feeding system in our milking area. So cows are milked 3 times a day. Through our expansion, we are running about 65% first lactation heifers, and that's just due to the expansion from 1,300 to the almost 2,800 cows. Right now, we're making about 95 pounds per head per day, which we're very happy with production levels. One thing that's extremely important to us is components, because we're measuring based on components per head shipped out the door. So we're running, I just pulled up our numbers. We're at 386 for fat and 318 for protein. And that's our monthly average so far for September. So very happy with production and components. The biggest thing for us is quality milk. And it was a little bit of a concern moving into the rotary because we had been able to monitor with our recycled manure solids. We've had them for years, and we've always been able to keep our somatic cell count lower than right at between 100 and 120,000. And so moving into the rotary, we weren't sure what to expect. And we've been very pleasantly surprised. So we've been less than 100,000 since day one, March of 2021. And over the past 6-7 months now, we've been running between 70 and 80,000 somatic cell spores. So extremely happy with the quality of teat and health, quality of milk coming through the system, and the way that that conductivity reader is monitoring our udder health of the herd. So with that, here's another picture of the outside of the barn, the hybrid ventilation system, just the way it's pulling in some outside air and then exhausting through those cupolas on top there. And yes, here's a picture of our family. So this is myself and my husband, Jonathan, his parents there in the middle, and they're primarily retired at this point and stage in their life. And then Jonathan's brother, Matthew, and his wife, Kendra. So Jonathan and Matthew manage all the cows between all 4 locations on the farm, obviously with farm managers there. And there is a non-family partner who's also been involved in the business since the 70s, and he and his family manage the crop and manure. So it's a really nice relationship between our families. And hopefully we're doing okay. I think we're doing okay. So with that, thank you again, and look forward to any questions that you have.
Thank you, Alicia, for that great overview and excellent somatic cell counts there. And your solids are they digested solids or just raw recycled solids?
So at Farm 2 here, we do not. So we've got 2 methane digesters at the original home farm, and then at the farm, our third farm that's up on the lake. But at this farm here at Farm 2, they're raw solids. So
No,
they're through a separator, they're not being digested.
it's very good, very good. So I think it looks like the system does a very good job of cleaning the teats and getting the milkers on, like clean teats. So that's great. Excellent. Anyway.
So we're good to that, yeah, from a management level on with the units themselves as well as in the barns.
We have one question starting here. How did the GIA or GEA, different ways of saying that. When I'm in Germany, I have to say GIA. Anyway, support before start and during and the startup and right now. So that transition time.
So GEA has been really good to us through the whole process. So we were building in 2020 during the height of COVID. And it was a little tough. We didn't know what to expect, but they were here every day during the build. And like I said, we started in March of 2021, and they had their whole team out here helping us. We had to make some modifications on the rotary with the entry system, as well as the stalls themselves, lengthening the stalls out to fit the size of our cows. And they were here every day for, gosh, I want to say 3 or 4 weeks, helping push on cows and help make adjustments as needed, so that they really wanted us to be successful with this operation, and they've done a very nice job since then. So a lot of people ask about maintenance of the system, and we've got 2 people on site trained for maintenance, but we also have our local GEA rep. Their company is SIDAC, and they're here 2 times a week for maintenance and any repairs that are above and beyond what our people here on location can do. They're right here to help with those.
That's great. Jim, can I ask the next question here?
Yeah, we have a question related to just kind of the solids. How often do you bed, or how often do you fill your stalls? And then how fresh are the solids when they go into the stalls?
Okay. So yeah, so the solids are coming out. They'll probably sit for 24 hours maybe, but it's not a significant period of time. So they're relatively fresh going into the stalls. So we do bed and groom 3 times a day. So, and that doesn't mean every single stall 3 times a day, but we've got the bedder going through 3 times a day. So like the, say the outside row is getting cleaned and bedded every day. Every stall gets cleaned, obviously, at every milking, but they're going through and cleaning it out. They're putting fresh bedding on. So each bed gets a fresh layer of bedding 3 times a day and gets groomed, or excuse me, 1 time a day and gets groomed every day. So we've got, the overnight crew, the daytime crew, and the afternoon crew. They're each doing that each round, each milking.
Okay.
When they're out of the barn. And that's one thing I will say. As far as having the cows completely out of the pen, it takes like 45 minutes for a group of cows. Having cows out of that pen completely makes those processes so much easier than what I've heard for a box stall type of system, because they're having to move the cows around.
Right. Makes it easier when they're not in the barn. Right. So you transition from a parallel, right, to the rotary. So cows had to learn 2 things: go to a rotary and then have the robot. Do you think that was a bit more of a challenge for the cows? How do you see that?
Yeah, it was definitely a bit of a challenge for the cows. So it's something I noticed now, maybe more so than I did the first year, because we've got cows that are calving back in for their second lactation, or fresh cows coming in, and they know no other system other than the rotary.
Right.
So there is definitely a transition period, and we were not. I won't say we weren't successful. GEA said we were very successful with our retention rate of cows. I think we had about 100 cows that exited this farm.
Okay.
They just were unable to transition to the robot, to the rotary. We do have, one of the other farms has a herringbone parlor, so we were able to just move those up to the other parlor.
Sure. So it's more adaptation to the rotary part of it more than anything for those cows. Okay.
Of the unit coming out is quite a bit different. I mean, our old parlor was 60 years old, and it was pretty quiet and low maintenance. So you go from that to an extremely new technology, a different For some of the older cows, it was a tough struggle. for them.
Sure, makes sense. Yeah. Jim, there's another question here, Jim.
Yeah, how many cows are in your holding pen, and then be kind of grouping, and
Mm.
how long would they be in that pen? So I think you had mentioned 45 minutes. So a little bit about time in the holding pen and milking time per group, etc.
Yeah. So our quickest group is our fresh group. And I should say that our just fresh cows, our hospital cows, do not go through the rotary parlor.
Oh, okay.
Maintained one of our existing herringbones, and those are completely kept separate. So those go through the parlor up front, our hospital and just fresh cows. So you don't have to worry about that. So I say our fresh group, and these are cows that have been, 24 hours in milk. So they have at least been milked for that time, and no colostrum collection up here.
Okay. Mhm.
So yeah, so our fresh group is our smallest group, and that group takes about 30 minutes. I'd have to look it up exactly, but 150 cows maybe in that group, about 30 minutes to go through them. And that is obviously our most intensively managed group here at the parlor, because we're still breaking 2-year-olds milk. So that can be a challenge. Our other groups run about 350 cows, and it takes about 45 minutes from the time that the first cow enters the holding area until the last cow exits the parlor.
Okay.
So I would say what is that? The average cow is in the holding area and out of the barn for 20, 25 minutes
Mhm.
each milking. So less than, maybe an hour a day they're out of pen.
Sounds good. Jim, I don't see, do I have a question? Because I've been asking too many. Sorry.
Yeah, I do. I just wondering, obviously you have a lot of choices. You have employees already with multiple farms. What drove your decision to put in this rotary system versus just a big carousel parlor, that was non-automated or a little less automated? And do you have, and it's kind of a follow-up to that, do you know your labor cost per hundredweight or labor cost per cow in this compared to your other facilities or your other systems?
So I know that they are monitoring labor cost per cow. I don't know that offhand. It's something that I
Okay.
would have to look that up, but I know they are monitoring that. And it is interesting, having 4 farms with 4 different milking systems, we're able to compare those costs. So it's nice being the scale that we are. So we do have a rotary parlor at the original home farm that was put in back in 2001. So it's 21 years old now, and it's a 60 stall parlor. And the interesting thing with that is that it's a 60 stall, obviously manual parlor. We've got 5 people in that parlor to do a full prep routine, and we don't have automatic post dippers. So someone is automatically post dipping those cows, which is why there's 5 people in there. And, so obviously labor costs when you're looking on a system like that versus our system with 1.5 people on a 72, it is significantly less. You can do the math on that. I would say the reason that we went with this, is twofold. Like I said, we needed to upgrade our technology. We needed to do something. Otherwise, this location was going to be shut down because it was in dire need of an upgrade. Quite frankly, New York State labor regulations have significantly become a challenge for farms in New York, between increasing per hour wages and then the minimum hours. I mean, we're looking like right now we're at a 60-hour work week with no overtime, and they're talking about dropping it to a 40-hour work week with overtime.
Right.
So, those things really come into play when you're making a management decision and how you're going to get your cows milked moving forward. And that did come into play a little bit as well.
Right. So follow up to a question here. We'll be putting more of these robotic parlors in the other facilities you have in the future?
I don't know about that. I think it's something that's definitely under consideration. We feel like we're doing well here and that we're figuring out this system, but I don't know. We have a nice labor force. We're able to get cows milked and everything right now, but it's definitely something for consideration. I know that many of our neighbors and many people from outside of our area, of course, have come and really been having serious discussions about it because of some of the situations that I mentioned.
Jim?
A question related to reproduction. Do you know your pregnancy rate or your other reproduction numbers? And then what are you using for heat detection? Do you have a system? Does this have a system as far as detecting heats, and maybe your whole repro system if you want to go through that?
Okay. So yeah, I should have looked up our repro numbers. So we are running, gosh, I want to say like a 28% preg rate. And I'd have to look that up to confirm it. I don't want to shut down my screen or anything, but I can look that up and confirm that to be sure. So heat detection, and it's kind of funny, this farm here in particular was such a low maintenance type system. So, prior to 2021, everything was visually monitored for heat and paint, tail paint and everything else. And back in 2020, I should say, we introduced the All Flex, the AFI system, or not AFI, oh my gosh, I just drew a blank, but anyhow.
The SCR there used to be, and now it's All Flex, then MST, keep changing names.
Yeah.
Right.
Your tag is not the neck thing. And that really, I think, has improved our heat detection quite a bit. But in addition to that, it's helped improve our health monitoring system dramatically. So we still do walk the barns every day. That's just the way we are. We walk the barns every day. We monitor cows and look for visual heats, but the SCR really helps us and has really improved our heat detection and overall preg rate for the herd.
But you wouldn't know from the top of your head what percent of cows are still being synchronized or anything like that, or you don't synchronize at all?
We do synchronize, yes.
Okay.
We do sync.
Okay, some cows. Okay, perfect. So the question here about is special knowledge for the operator needed? I mean, do you have to have a special type of labor force now to operate this parlor compared to the past?
The biggest thing with operation of the parlor is just learning what the different lights mean, the different, the buttons. There's some little quirks and tweaks sometimes with the system that you just have to figure that out. But as far as any specialized training other than that, no, it's a fairly easy system to learn to use.
Okay, that's good to know. And you do have your people kind of trained, you said, to fix little things and so on, right? So you do some of those minor repairs, if you will,
in-house. Yeah,
in-house, so that saves you some costs and stuff. Yeah. I have one more question, Jim, looks like.
Do you have to put cows on manual? Can you milk them manually in the
question.
system?
Yeah.
I forgot to mention that. So we do have, it's right around 11% of our cows are manual attached. And a lot of that, well, there's twofold reason for that. One is the closed teats. So even though the GEA is, I think that the GEA system, it's a 3D camera, so it's a little bit better than the laser eye as far as detecting the teat placement than some of the other systems. Well, that's what I've understood and been told. Anyhow, it does a really good job of being able to get those cows with closed teats, but there's still a few that we have to manually attach as a result of that. I would say that our biggest issue for manual attaches is just disposition. Cows that keep units off, cows that don't stand there to let the unit hang. So that would be the biggest reason that we're hanging cows manually.
Interesting. And it's independent of parity, or probably maybe more of that problem is with heifers as they learning and until they get trained, if you will.
And there's a few cows that are like that.
Few cows too that continue to be the ones that you always manually attach. Yeah, okay, but they're still good cows you want to keep because productive cows. Eventually, maybe they'll be better, but who knows? That's a kind of the challenge. Jim, we'll have question for time for one more question if you have one. I don't see any open questions from the audience.
Yeah, I'm sure another question is repairs versus what your expected repairs have been. Has it been, what would you consider manageable as far as the repair cost is concerned?
Yeah, and again, I don't have those numbers in front of me. I'd have to dig them out. But I would say that our repair costs aren't too bad. The biggest cost that we have seen and biggest difference in cost, ironically, is iodine. Like our iodine usage on the robot was significantly more than our iodine usage just from a manual dip. And so that's something that we have looked at and are trying to work with GEA to make those adjustments. But as far as, obviously the cost for maintenance of this system is quite a bit higher than a traditional.
Of course, more automated, obviously.
There's more components all the way through.
Sure. A lot of valves and things have to be replaced and so on. So maybe more iodine, maybe it's disinfecting the teeth ends a little bit better though. You know what I mean? Like you're having, is it a
Right.
lot more, like doubled or just a little bit more?
I think it's about 50% more.
50%
we,
more. Okay.
like, 1.5 times more than we anticipated. So it's, whether that's the way that the unit sprays that on, I'm not
Mhm.
entirely certain, and how it comes back through the system, I don't know.
Okay.
That was definitely something that we noticed. Yeah.
Sure. Very interesting. Well, we're out of time for questions. So I do thank everyone for attending, and especially thanks to you, Alicia, for taking time to be with us today, and invite everyone to join us back in October 20th for the next episode of our series. So thank you.